let me stress unequivocally, you do not want to use a foreign key ever. Let's talk about sequences plus multi-table insert and referential integrity. And in general, the concept of referential integrity and multi-table inserts, because a lot of people get this horribly wrong. And we're just going to leap straight into a demo to walk through some of the things that can go very, very wrong with multi-table inserts and referential integrity. I'm going to create a table called parent. And as you can imagine, this will be the parent table in my foreign key relationship, and create a table called child. And you can see on line 5, we have a standard foreign key that references the child back to the parent. Nothing spectacular there. I'll create a sequence, one to populate the parent, one to populate the child. It's a common thing. We often have a surrogate key and a sequence. This could be generated by identity. If you're on 12 or above, doesn't really matter. I'm just going to use the sequence. Let's now try blend a foreign key into a multi-table insert. This seems to make sense. I'm going to do select row num from dual, connect by level less than or equal to 10. So I'm going to get the rows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. When row equals 1, the very first row, I'll put that row into the parent table. That'll seed my value of 1 for the parent. When the row num's greater than 1, I'll then go and put new children in, and they'll refer back to parentSeek.currentVal. Now, parentSeek.nextVal, because I've just created the sequence, is going to be 1, just like R is, but it doesn't matter what it is. Whatever it is, I'm going to refer back to it with currentVal. So the first row will populate the parent, and then all the rows will populate the children. It doesn't work. You get a foreign key violation. Let's explore that a little bit further, because it seems, if we just read the insert statement, it looks like it should work. So let's back off the sequence a little bit. Let's try this. When row equals 1, R equals 1, I'm going to put the value of 1 for the primary key. I'm actually going to hard code 1 for the primary key. When the row is greater than 1, I'll insert the primary key of R for the child, and then 1 for the parent key relating back. Maybe there's an issue in general with multi-table insert and putting parents and children in the same insert statement. Let's give this a run. It works fine. Removing the sequence elements, this works fine. So that's good to know. Let's now, rather than having a constant, I'll actually do the parent value coming from some element from my source select statement. So rather than hard coding the 1 for the parent, it's actually coming as a column called PID, parent ID. Now I've hard coded it as 1 in here, but I'm still referring to PID here in my 2 insert statements. So now it's a little bit more complexity. It's no longer something that's hard coded as a constant. The database actually has to evaluate the source query. That works fine as well. So that much multi-table insert with foreign keys, even when the foreign key information is coming from the select statement, seems to be fine. Maybe it's because the parent came first. Parent was there, and therefore the child could refer back to it. So let's flip it around. Now I'm doing 11 minus row num. So the first value that comes out of that query is the value of 10. And in fact, the very last row will actually be this one. So in this case, I'm going to insert actually all 10 children first, and then finally insert the parent. Maybe this won't work because obviously the child can't refer back to a non-existent parent. And that works fine as well. Strange with multi-table insert, even though we read it top to bottom, it's still being used as effectively a set of data. And at the end of it, the database is going, we've done all this. Is it okay for foreign keys? We're good. Life works out well. Let's roll that back. What about this way, where this one, I've made it a bit more explicit. I've said row is 10, the last row it goes in, same thing. It just proves that we don't care what order the data arrives as long as it's valid at the end. So you can see this seems to work. It was only when the sequences are in there that things went wrong. I'll disable the constraint so we can see the data going in and then find out why it wouldn't have satisfied the constraint. I'll drop the sequence and recreate them just to reset them back to 1 so the numbers are easy. And let's run our command. Here's our insert, 10 rows inserted. Because the foreign key is now disabled, it allowed the rows to go in. Let's look at the actual resulting data. I got the value of 1 in my parent, so that much was expected. It was the only value I was planning to insert. But But in my children rows, I got the rows 2 through 10 for my child next value. But notice that even though I referenced parent_seek.currentVal, I got these incrementing values. There is a reference to parent.nextVal somewhere in that insert all statement. As a result, every time we get a source row from the source table, we increment parent.nextVal. So even though we're referring to parent.currentValue for the child table, because there was a reference somewhere in the insert to nextVal, it gets bumped for each row in the source. And therefore, when we try insert this row with a parent equals 2, it doesn't exist because the only row we inserted was the parent of 1. And that's why sequence.nextVal and sequence.currentVal in a multi-table insert with a foreign key between the tables is going to generally give you some problems. Having showed you some examples where the foreign key worked when I wasn't using indexes, let me stress unequivocally, you do not want to use a foreign key ever. Let's see why. I'll create my table called parent as it was before. Create a table called child. Let's add one more into the mix, a grandchild. So now it's three-way. Here I'll insert, there's no sequence here. This is just hard-coded values like we saw before. I'm inserting into parent, child, grandchild, 10 rows. Just 10 rows into each of them. Works sweet. Fantastic. I code this in my development environment. I test it. It's running great. Into production it goes. In production, let's roll that back. Let's do the exact same insert now with 100 rows. No differences. And it blows up. It's actually in the docs. You should not be using multi-table insert with tables that are linked by any kind of referential integrity. Cannot stress that enough. You have to be super, super careful. SQL is a set-based language, and the concept of, as long as I read the insert all statement top to bottom, then it's all going to work. That's not how SQL works. SQL does everything in a order in which it determines and it decides. It's just fraught with danger to do multi-table inserts and have foreign keys between the target tables of that multi-table insert. So please don't ever do it. Even if it works, it might not work one day.